The impossible students. Professor Zalax's bioluminescent spots pulsed with anxiety as he reviewed the admission files for the 1000th time. The 3 human profiles floating in his holodisplay seemed to mock everything the Galactic Defense Academy stood for. In his 3 centuries of life, he'd never faced such an absurd situation. "Computer, replay the Council's mandate again," he chittered, his secondary nervous system twitching with irritation. The AI's smooth voice filled his office. "By decree of the Galactic Council, all Level 2 civilizations must be granted equal opportunity for representation in core institutions. Earth's recent classification as a Death World species does not exempt them from this right." Zalax's membrane-covered eyes blinked rapidly in sequence. Equal opportunity was one thing, but this? The Academy's entrance requirements had been carefully calibrated over millennia. Even the brightest minds from advanced civilizations struggled with their basic theoretical framework. How could these humans, barely 2 centuries into their space age, hope to comprehend 15-dimensional quantum mechanics? The door chimed, interrupting his ruminations. "Enter," he called out, quickly dissolving the holodisplay. First Administrator Lara glided into the room, her crystalline form refracting the office's soft light into rainbow patterns across the walls. "Still obsessing over the humans, Zalax?" "Obsessing? I'm trying to prevent the complete degradation of our standards," he retorted, his spots flashing darker. "Have you seen their academic backgrounds? Their most advanced physicist barely grasped 11 dimensions." Lara's crystalline structure hummed with what Zalax recognized as amusement. "Perhaps that's precisely why the Council chose them. When was the last time we truly tested our assumptions about learning and intelligence?" Before Zalax could respond, his communit chimed. "Professor, the human transport has entered orbit." Lara turned to leave, her crystal form sparkling. "Time to face your fears, old friend. Who knows? They might surprise you." The docking bay was packed with faculty and senior students when Zalax arrived. The Academy's massive receiving hall, designed to accommodate beings of all sizes and atmospheric requirements, felt unusually small with so many curious onlookers. Even the normally reclusive gas phase collective had sent representatives, their containment spheres hovering near the ceiling. The transport ship was disappointingly ordinary, a standard Galactic Council diplomatic vessel. Zalax had half expected some crude rocket with chemical propulsion. As the docking procedures completed, he found himself unconsciously adjusting his facial membranes to appear more authoritative. The ship's airlock cycled, and 3 figures stepped out. Zalax's primary heart skipped a beat. The humans looked wrong. Not in their basic biology, the Academy had extensive files on human physiology, but in their bearing. They moved with a confidence that bordered on insolence, showing no signs of strain despite Centaur Prime's punishing gravity. Mason Drake led the group, his red hair blazing under the binary sun streaming through the bay's transparent ceiling. He stood tall, even by human standards, with a physicality that seemed barely contained by his formal uniform. His eyes, a startling blue, scanned the crowd with an intensity that made several empathic species take involuntary steps backward. Nova Chen followed, moving with a fluid grace that seemed to deny the planet's 2.3 standard gravity. Her dark eyes missed nothing, and Zalax noticed how she systematically catalogued every exit, every potential threat, every strategic position in the room. A warrior's assessment, executed with disturbing speed. Rex Thompson brought up the rear, and his expression made Zalax's spots pulse with irritation. The human wore what his species called a grin, but there was something more to it, as if he found the entire situation amusing in ways only he understood. "Welcome to the Galactic Defense Academy," Zalax began the traditional greeting, his translator working overtime to convey the proper formal tones. "I am Professor Zalax, Senior Training Director." "Sweet setup you've got here, Prof," Thompson replied, still grinning. "Love what you've done with the gravity. Really adds to the whole Elite Academy vibe." Several faculty members bristled at the casual form of address. Zalax felt his spots darken. You will find, Cadet Thompson, that the Academy takes its traditions and protocols very seriously. Of course, Professor. Mason Drake stepped forward, his voice carrying effortlessly across the hall. We're honored to be here and look forward to learning your ways. Something in his tone made Zalax wonder if he was being subtly mocked. Nova Chen simply bowed, a gesture that somehow managed to convey both respect and evaluation. Your orientation will begin immediately, Zalax announced, trying to regain control of the situation. We have prepared a comprehensive briefing on our assessment protocols. Quick question, Thompson interrupted, raising his hand casually. These assessments, they're basically just really advanced video games, right? The hall fell silent. Even the gas phase collective stopped their perpetual molecular vibration. I beg your pardon. Zalax's spots were now pulsing rapidly with shock and indignation. Well, I've been looking at the specs, Thompson continued, pulling out a data pad. Your combat simulators use quantum probability fields to generate tactical scenarios. That's basically the same principle as our VR gaming systems, just with way better graphics and actual physics manipulation. Nova Chen's lips twitched slightly. Rex, maybe we should let them finish the briefing before we start redesigning their systems. The Academy's training protocols, Zalax managed to say through his rising confusion, are the product of thousands of years of pedagogical development. They are not games. Everything's a game if you look at it right, Thompson replied cheerfully. It's all about understanding the rules and finding the optimal strategy. Like that 15-dimensional quantum mechanics course everyone's so worried about, it's just a really complicated puzzle box, isn't it? Mason Drake stepped forward again, shooting Thompson a warning look. What my colleague means, Professor, is that we're eager to engage with your teaching methods, whatever form they take. Zalax stared at the three humans, his vast experience suddenly feeling inadequate. In all his years at the Academy, no one had ever dared to compare their sacred training protocols to entertainment systems. The worst part was, on a purely technical level, Thompson wasn't entirely wrong. The orientation will proceed as scheduled, he announced firmly. Please follow Administrator Villara to the briefing chamber. As the humans moved off, chatting among themselves, Zalax activated his personal recording device. Log entry, Day 1, I may have made a terrible mistake. Or perhaps. No. Too early to tell. Note to self, investigate human video games and their potential cognitive implications. In the following days, as the humans began their basic assessments, Zalax would have many opportunities to update that log. None of them would prepare him for what was to come. Breaking the rules by following them. Professor Zalax's recording device hummed to life as he began his weekly assessment log. Week 3, Standard Cycle. The humans have, well, they've done something unprecedented. Again. His spots flickered with a mixture of frustration and reluctant admiration. I should start at the beginning. The quantum physics lecture hall was designed to accommodate 300 students, its tiered seating arranged in a perfect hyperbolic curve for optimal acoustic resonance. Today, it held only 3, and they were making senior theorist Viezal seriously reconsider his teaching career. No, Cadet Thompson, you cannot just wing it through 15-dimensional calculus. Viezal's tentacles writhed in agitation. The mathematical principles must be internalized through careful study and. But that's exactly what I'm saying, Rex interrupted, sketching something on his data pad. If you think about it like a dance instead of an equation. A dance? Viezal's color shifted to the deep purple of academic outrage. Nova Chen leaned forward. Rex has a point, Professor. Humans understand physical concepts better through movement. We've been practicing the quantum harmonics by treating each dimension as a different rhythm. Mason Drake pulled up a holographic display. Look at this. He activated a sequence that showed complex mathematical equations transforming into flowing patterns of light. We mapped the standard quantum formulae to musical frequencies. Each dimension corresponds to a different octave. Va Zhao's tentacles went limp with shock. That's not how these concepts are meant to be learned. But the math checks out, Nova pointed out. We ran it through your verification systems. Our solutions are unconventional, but they're correct. Later that day, in the combat simulation chamber, the humans proved that quantum physics wasn't the only field they planned to revolutionize. The chamber was a massive geodesic sphere, its interior surface composed of billions of quantum-locked particles that could generate any environment or gravity condition. Today's exercise was supposed to be impossible, a tactical scenario under 12 times standard gravity. Most species could barely move under such conditions. The humans didn't just move, they thrived. They're treating it like a game, combat instructor Kexri observed, her crystalline form vibrating with disbelief. Look at their formation. Zalax watched as the three cadets moved through the crushing gravity in what appeared to be a completely chaotic pattern. Then he noticed something strange. They're taking turns. Indeed, while one human engaged the combat drones, the other two would rest, conserving energy. They rotated every 45 seconds, maintaining a constant assault that would have exhausted even the strongest individual. That's not in any tactical manual I've ever studied, Kexri admitted. Baseball, Mason explained later during the debriefing. It's like a pitcher's rotation in baseball. No single player has to maintain peak performance indefinitely. What is this, baseball? Zalax demanded. Just another game, Prof, Rex grinned. Humans have been playing it for centuries. You can learn a lot from games, you know. The breaking point came during the psychic resistance training. The Academy had developed sophisticated techniques to shield minds from telepathic intrusion, requiring years of meditation and mental discipline. The humans, naturally, had other ideas. They're singing, Psychic Defense Master Yulara reported, her ethereal form flickering with confusion. Inside their minds. All the time. The same songs, over and over. Songs. Zalax's spots pulsed with curiosity. They call it, getting a song stuck in your head. It's apparently a common human phenomenon. But they're using it deliberately, creating so much mental noise that telepathic intrusion becomes nearly impossible. It's like mental spam, Nova explained when questioned. If you fill your thoughts with something repetitive and engaging, it's much harder for someone else to insert their own signals. The Academy's faculty gathered for an emergency meeting. The humans had been at the Academy for just 3 weeks, and they'd already challenged fundamental assumptions about learning that had stood for millennia. They're not actually breaking any rules, Vilara pointed out, her crystalline form sparkling with amusement. They're just approaching them from completely unexpected angles. That's exactly the problem. Zalax's spots were practically strobing. They're taking our carefully crafted protocols and turning them into games. Vilara suggested. Perhaps that's not as inappropriate as you think. Consider, what is a game but a structured system for learning and problem solving? Before Zalax could respond, an alarm blared through the faculty chamber. The quantum physics lab was detecting unusual energy signatures. They found the 3 humans in the lab, surrounded by holographic displays showing impossibly complex equations. But instead of studying them, they appeared to be dancing. The equations flow better this way, Rex explained, moving through a series of steps that somehow corresponded to fluctuations in the quantum field. Each movement represents a dimensional shift. It's easier to feel the math than to think about it. That's not possible, Va Zhao protested. You can't just feel quantum mathematics. Why not? Mason asked, never breaking his rhythm. Isn't that what you're doing with your tentacles when you write equations? Converting abstract concepts into physical movements. Nova spun through a complex sequence that perfectly mapped a 17-dimensional transformation. Humans learn best by doing. We've been solving complex problems through movement since before we had written language. Zalax watched as the humans continued their quantum dance, their movements somehow maintaining perfect synchronization with the mathematical displays. His recording device was still running. Personal note, he spoke quietly. We may need to reconsider everything we thought we knew about learning. The humans aren't succeeding despite their unconventional methods, they're succeeding because of them. The next day, something even more unexpected happened. Other students began asking to join the human study sessions. They make it look fun, a young crystalline admitted sheepishly. And their results are undeniable. The Academy's traditional teaching methods had always emphasized individual achievement through solitary study. The humans, however, turned everything into a group activity. Learning is better with friends, Rex insisted. Everything is. They organized study groups that crossed species boundaries. Physical limitations became opportunities for collaboration. What one species found difficult, another found easy, and together they developed new ways to understand complex concepts. They're creating something entirely new, Vilara observed. A hybrid teaching methodology that combines our rigor with their creativity. Zalax watched as a gaseous collective member helped a crystalline student understand quantum harmonics by modulating their molecular vibrations to match the frequencies the humans had mapped. In another corner, a luminary was teaching a human meditation technique using light patterns based on video game interfaces. Computer, update official Academy records, he spoke into his recorder. Topic: Educational Methodology Revolution. The human cadets have demonstrated that effective learning can take many forms. Their approach, while unorthodox, suggests that our traditional methods may have been unnecessarily limiting. Further study is required, but preliminary results indicate. He paused, watching as Rex Thompson demonstrated a particularly complex quantum transformation through what he called a breakdancing move. Preliminary results indicate that we may have been taking ourselves too seriously for far too long. End update. But even as the humans revolutionized the Academy's teaching methods, greater challenges loomed on the horizon. The combat trials were approaching, tests that would push even their unconventional approaches to their absolute limits. And beyond that lay the final examinations, where they would have to prove that their methods could produce results that met the Academy's exacting standards. The real test was yet to come. The Trials of Fire. Professor Zalax's recording device activated with its familiar hum. Combat Trials Assessment Log, Day 1. I honestly don't know how to describe what I just witnessed. The humans have. His spots flickered rapidly. Computer, strike that. Let me start again. The combat chamber loomed before them, its massive quantum-locked walls thrumming with barely contained energy. Today would mark the beginning of the most grueling phase of the Academy's curriculum, the Advanced Combat Trials. Most species required at least 3 years of preparation before attempting them. The humans had been at the Academy for just 4 months. This is inadvisable, Combat Master Kexri stated flatly. Her crystalline form vibrated with concern. They haven't completed the full preparation cycle. The neural integration alone. We're ready, Mason Drake interrupted. He stood at ease, but there was something predatory in his stance. We've been running our own simulations. Your own. Kexri's crystalline structure clouded with confusion. How? Rex Thompson grinned that insufferable grin of his. Remember those video game principles we talked about? Turns out they translate pretty well to combat scenarios. Nova Chen remained silent, but her dark eyes never stopped moving, analyzing every detail of the chamber's entrance. She had that look that Zalax had come to recognize, the one that meant the humans had devised something that would upend everyone's expectations. The first trial was traditionally a simple survival exercise: endure varying gravity conditions while defending against automated combat drones. The record for longest survival was held by a Luminary graduate, 6 hours under conditions ranging from 0.1 to 8 standard gravity units. The humans lasted 12 hours. And they didn't just survive. They're playing with the gravity shifts, senior observer V. Lara noted, her crystalline form sparkling with excitement. Look at how they're timing their movements. Indeed, the humans had turned the random gravity fluctuations into advantages. When the field increased, they used the extra weight to add power to their strikes. In low gravity, they executed impossible maneuvers that turned the chamber's walls and ceiling into launching points for attacks. It's like parkour in space, Rex explained later, barely winded. You just have to feel the rhythm of the gravity shifts and go with it. Parkour. Zalax's facial membranes twitched. Another human game, Prof., Rex grinned. We've got lots of them. But it was during the team trials that the humans truly showed their capabilities. The challenge seemed impossible: 3 cadets against a simulated invasion force in a cityscape with randomly shifting environmental conditions. Standard doctrine called for defensive positioning and careful resource management. The humans, naturally, had other ideas. They're splitting up, Kexri observed, her crystalline form clouding with concern. That's suicide against superior numbers. But then the method in their apparent madness became clear. Mason took high ground, using his superior strength to handle the heavy gravity zones. Nova slipped through the low gravity sectors, her movements so precise she seemed to dance between enemy formations. Rex seemed to be everywhere at once, using the environmental shifts to cause chaos in the enemy ranks. Look at their communication pattern, V. Lara pointed out. The humans had developed a system of hand signals and short vocal cues that conveyed complex tactical information almost instantly. It's based on something called baseball signs and military hand signals, Nova explained during the debrief. We combined them with some basic MMO raid callouts. MMO? Zalax felt his spots darken with familiar resignation. Massive multiplayer online games, Rex chimed in. They're these big virtual worlds where players have to coordinate complex actions in real time. You'd love them, Professor. But it wasn't all triumph and innovation. The neural integration trials nearly broke them. The challenge required cadets to mentally interface with the Academy's combat systems, processing massive amounts of tactical data in real time. Most species took months to achieve even basic integration. The humans struggled. Their brains, evolved on a death world with the need to filter out enormous amounts of sensory input, initially rejected the direct neural feed. Too much, Mason gasped after their first attempt, blood trickling from his nose. Can't separate the signals. For the first time, Zalax saw real fear in their eyes. This wasn't a game anymore. This was something their unique approach couldn't simply redefine or work around. Then Nova had an idea. We're trying to process it like machines, she said, her voice hoarse from the neural feedback. But we're not machines. We need to process it like humans. They requested access to the neural interface specifications and spent 3 days locked in their quarters. When they emerged, they had rebuilt the entire interface protocol. We've redesigned it to work with our neural architecture instead of against it, Nova explained. Instead of trying to process everything at once, we're using what we call intuitive chunking, breaking the data into patterns that our brains naturally recognize. Like how humans can instantly recognize faces in random patterns, Rex added. We're basically turning tactical data into pareidolia. The results were unprecedented. Not only did they achieve stable neural integration, but they also developed new ways to interpret and act on the tactical feeds that no one had considered before. They're not just adapting to our systems, V. Lara observed. They're forcing our systems to adapt to them. The final trial was something no one expected: because it wasn't supposed to be a trial at all. During a routine training session, the combat chamber's quantum containment field began to destabilize. The safety systems failed. The chamber's massive energy reserves threatened to collapse into a singularity that could destroy half the academy. The evacuation order went out immediately. The humans ignored it. "What are you doing?" Zalax demanded over the emergency comm. "Get out of there." "No time," Mason's voice was eerily calm. "But don't worry, Professor, this is just like that reactor level in Half-Life." Before anyone could stop them, the three humans had plunged into the chaos of the destabilizing chamber. What followed was either madness or brilliance, perhaps both. Mason used his strength to manually realign the primary containment rings, fighting against gravitational forces that should have crushed him. Nova's precise movements carried her through gaps in the quantum field that lasted microseconds, adjusting critical systems with surgical precision. Rex actually climbed into the quantum core itself, using his newfound neural interface skills to directly manipulate the field harmonics. Just like playing guitar, his strained voice came over the comm. "You have to feel the resonance." When it was over, when the chamber had been stabilized and the humans emerged scorched but alive, Zalax found himself at a loss for words. "How?" he finally managed to ask. "How did you even know what to do?" "Games, Prof," Rex grinned, though it was a tired grin now. "Every game has a final boss battle. You just have to figure out the patterns and find the weak points." Later, alone in his office, Zalax spoke to his recorder one last time that day. "Personal note, the humans have proven themselves beyond any doubt. But more than that, they've proven something about the nature of learning itself. Their games aren't just entertainment, they're sophisticated training systems evolved on a death world where mistake means extinction. We thought we were teaching them. In reality, they've been teaching us." But even as he finished his log, new challenges were emerging. The human success had attracted attention far beyond the Academy's walls. The Galactic Council was taking notice, and not everyone was happy about the changes these Death Worlders were bringing to their carefully ordered society. The greatest test was yet to come, not of combat skills or neural integration, but of the very future of galactic education itself. Revolution in motion. Emergency recording, galactic date 47302.6, Professor Zalax's spots pulsed with unusual intensity. "The Oversight Committee has just arrived. They're calling it a routine inspection, but we all know why they're really here. The humans have sparked something that can't be contained within our walls anymore, and not everyone is happy about it." The Academy's Grand Hall, normally reserved for graduation ceremonies, was packed with dignitaries from across the galaxy. At the center sat the Oversight Committee, 12 beings representing the oldest and most prestigious educational institutions in known space. High Administrator Chulith, a gaseous entity whose containment sphere sparkled with barely contained energy, spoke first. "This institution has stood as a beacon of excellence for over 10,000 years. Its methods are proven, its standards absolute. These recent innovations threaten everything we've built." Zalax felt his secondary nervous system twitch as he rose to address the assembly. Before he could speak, a familiar voice rang out from the back of the hall. "Permission to address the committee?" Mason Drake stood, his presence somehow filling the massive space. The other human cadets flanked him, their expressions serious for once. A murmur ran through the assembled dignitaries. Students addressing the Oversight Committee? Unthinkable. This is highly irregular. Chulitha's containment sphere flickered with disapproval. "So is everything else about us," Nova Chen replied smoothly. "That's rather the point." Rex Thompson stepped forward, and for once he wasn't grinning. "You're not just here about our training methods. You're here because word has spread, and applications to the Academy have tripled since we arrived." He was right. The news of the humans' unconventional success had leaked, as such things inevitably do. Now, species from across the galaxy were clamoring to send their own cadets to learn these new methods. The Academy's traditional methods have produced excellence for millennia, another committee member, a luminary elder, intoned. Why should we change what works? Because working isn't the same as thriving, Mason replied. He activated a holoprojector, filling the hall with data streams. These are the performance metrics for all current Academy students over the past 6 months. The displays showed an unprecedented upward trend across all departments. Not just for the humans, but for every species that had adopted their collaborative learning methods. The crystallines have improved their neural integration speeds by 300% using our pattern recognition techniques, Nova explained, highlighting specific data points. The gaseous collectives have revolutionized quantum physics education by incorporating movement-based learning. And the best part? Rex added, his serious demeanor finally cracking into a slight smile, everyone's actually enjoying the process. Enjoyment is not the purpose of education, Chulith declared, their containment sphere pulsing with conviction. Isn't it though? A new voice joined the debate. First Administrator V. Lara glided forward, her crystalline form refracting the hall's light in complex patterns. I've been analyzing the humans' methods from a neurological perspective. Their games aren't just entertainment, they're sophisticated learning tools evolved on a death world. She projected her own data set. When learning is engaging, when it taps into natural problem-solving instincts, retention rates increase exponentially. The humans haven't been breaking our system, they've been showing us how to make it better. The debate raged for hours. Traditional hardliners argued for maintaining the old ways, while progressives pushed for embracing the changes. But the real turning point came from an unexpected source. A junior crystalline cadet, barely into their first year, asked to speak. Their crystal form was still rough, unpolished, a sign of youth and inexperience. But when they spoke, their words carried weight. Before the humans came, I was failing quantum mechanics, they admitted. I couldn't grasp the concepts, no matter how many traditional exercises I completed. Then I joined one of their study groups. The crystalline's form shifted, creating a complex pattern of light and shadow. They taught me to understand quantum states through crystalline resonance patterns, something my species has been doing naturally for millennia, but we never thought to apply to academic learning. Now I'm at the top of my class. Similar testimonials followed. A gaseous collective member who had mastered combat maneuvers by treating them like molecular dance patterns. A luminary who had improved their psychic defenses using human meditation techniques combined with their natural light manipulation abilities. This is the true purpose of the Academy, isn't it? Mason asked the committee. Not just to maintain standards, but to discover new potentials. To push the boundaries of what's possible. The committee called for a recess to deliberate. During the break, Zalax found the humans in their usual spot, the modified training room they'd turned into what they called a rec room. Whatever happens, he told them, his spots pulsing with unexpected emotion, you've already changed everything. That's kind of what humans do, Prof, Rex grinned, but there was wisdom behind his usual levity. We can't help but shake things up wherever we go. It's not just about changing things, Nova added thoughtfully. It's about finding connections. Every species has their own unique way of understanding the universe. We just help them see how those different perspectives could work together. When the committee reconvened, their decision was unexpected but perhaps inevitable. The Academy would establish a new department, the Center for Innovative Learning Methodologies. Its first task would be to document and formalize the humans' teaching methods, while exploring how they could be adapted for different species. But there was a catch. If we're going to revolutionize how we teach, High Administrator Chulith announced, their containment sphere now showing patterns of cautious acceptance, we need to be certain these methods can produce results at the highest levels. Therefore, we propose a challenge. The terms were unprecedented. The 3 human cadets would face the Academy's final examinations, not after the traditional 10 years of preparation, but at the end of their first year. If you pass, Chulith continued, your methods will be fully incorporated into the Academy's curriculum. If you fail, we won't, Mason stated simply. How can you be so sure? The Luminari elder asked. Because that's what humans do, Rex replied, his grin returning full force. We turn impossible challenges into winning conditions. It's kind of our thing. Later, in his office, Zalax updated his personal log. The humans face their greatest challenge yet, but I find myself more curious than concerned. They've taught us that education isn't just about transferring knowledge, it's about discovering new ways to understand the universe and our place in it. Whatever happens in their final examination, that lesson alone has made all of this worthwhile. He paused, his spots flickering with amusement. Though I must admit, I'm rather looking forward to seeing how they turn these examinations into another one of their games. Computer, end recording. The next few months would test everyone's assumptions about what was possible in education. The humans had sparked a revolution, but revolutions are always hardest at the end. The final examinations would either validate everything they'd fought for, or prove their critics right. The countdown had begun. Rewriting the stars. Final assessment log, galactic date 47405.8, Professor Zalax's recording device captured the tension in his voice. In all my centuries at the Academy, I've never seen anything like the preparations for today's examination. The humans have turned the entire Academy into what they call a boss raid. I'm still not entirely sure what that means, but I'm beginning to understand why they've been so confident. The Academy's examination chamber had been transformed. Traditional testing protocols called for sequential challenges in isolated environments. The humans, naturally, had other ideas. Single-thread processing is inefficient, Nova had argued during the preparation phase. We want to run all the tests simultaneously, in an integrated environment. The committee had objected, of course. Impossible, High Administrator Chulith had declared. The cognitive load alone would be manageable if you approach it like an MMO raid, Rex interrupted, earning confused looks from everyone except his fellow humans. Multiple challenges, multiple roles, real-time coordination. We've been training for this our whole lives. Now, standing before the modified chamber, even Zalax had to admit the setup was impressive. The humans had worked with the Academy's engineers to create a testing environment that would challenge every skill they'd learned, all at once. Remember when I said everything's a game if you look at it right? Rex grinned at Zalax. This is our final level. Mason Drake stepped forward, his expression focused. We're ready. The examination began with a quantum physics challenge that would have been impossible under normal circumstances, maintaining stable 15-dimensional calculations while under combat stress and varying gravity conditions. But the humans had prepared for this. They moved in perfect synchronization, their earlier, quantum dance, transformed into something more. Nova handled the complex calculations, her movements flowing like water as she manipulated the dimensional matrices. Mason managed the gravity variations, his strength allowing him to create stable platforms for the others. Rex darted between them, making split-second adjustments to keep their system in balance. They're not just solving the problems, Lara observed, her crystalline form sparkling with excitement. They're creating new solutions in real time. The neural integration phase came next, overlapping with the ongoing physics challenge. Traditional doctrine said this was suicide, no one could maintain that level of mental processing while handling physical challenges. The humans proved tradition wrong. They had modified their neural interfaces to work together, creating what they called a party sync system. When one of them struggled with the mental load, the others automatically compensated, sharing the burden seamlessly. Like load balancing in a server cluster, Rex explained later, though that explanation helped no one except the humans. The combat trials were integrated throughout, random attacks coming from all angles under constantly changing conditions. The humans handled them almost casually, their earlier training showing in every movement. Their speed running it, one of the younger observers noted, using terminology they'd picked up from the humans. Indeed, the three cadets moved through the challenges with practiced efficiency, as if they'd rehearsed this exact scenario countless times. In a way, they had, through their games, their simulations, their endless creative preparations. But the true test came when the system threw in an unexpected variable, a complete power failure in the testing chamber. "This isn't part of the exam," Chulitha's containment sphere pulsed with concern. "We should stop." "No," Zalax interrupted, his spots pulsing with sudden understanding. "This is exactly what they've been preparing for. Watch." The humans didn't even hesitate. They switched instantly to what they called hardcore mode, operating without technological assistance, relying purely on their trained instincts and coordination. Mason's strength became their anchor in the shifting gravity. Nova's precise movements guided them through the darkness. Rex started humming, of all things. Keeping tempo, he explained afterward. In rhythm games, you can follow the beat even when you can't see the notes. The power came back on to reveal something unprecedented. The humans hadn't just survived the failure, they'd continued solving challenges throughout it. Their neural interfaces had maintained connection through shared body rhythm, their quantum calculations had continued through memorized movement patterns, and their combat effectiveness had actually increased. "Flow state," Nova explained. "When everything else falls away, you're just in the moment, acting on pure instinct and training." The final phase was supposed to be a pure theoretical examination, defending their methods before the committee. The humans turned even this into something new. Instead of a traditional presentation, they created what they called a tutorial level. Committee members found themselves participating in simplified versions of the humans' training methods, experiencing firsthand how different approaches to learning could work together. Crystalline committee members discovered they could understand quantum harmonics through resonance patterns. Gaseous collective members learned combat maneuvers through molecular dance. Luminary elders experienced how human meditation techniques could enhance their natural abilities. "This is why we succeeded," Mason explained to the stunned committee. "Not because our methods are better, but because they showed us how to combine everyone's strengths. Every species has unique ways of understanding the universe. We just helped create connections. The games, the competitions, the challenges, they're not just about winning," Nova added. "They're about learning how to learn." Rex, for once, didn't grin. "On Earth, we have millions of games, each teaching different skills. We evolved to learn through play because our world is too dangerous for trial and error. Every game is a simulation, a safe way to prepare for real challenges." The committee's deliberation was shorter than anyone expected. The humans hadn't just passed their examination, they'd revolutionized it. "The Academy will implement these new methodologies immediately," Chulith announced, their containment sphere glowing with new patterns. "Furthermore, we are establishing exchange programs with Earth's educational institutions. It seems we have much to learn from each other." Later, in his office, Zalax made his final recording about the human cadets. "They did more than change our teaching methods. They changed how we think about learning itself. Every game they played, every rule they bent, every tradition they challenged, it was all in service of a simple truth we'd forgotten: education isn't about maintaining standards. It's about discovering new potentials." He paused, his spots pulsing with what humans would call pride. "The Academy will never be the same. And that, I finally understand, is exactly what we needed." These three humans, Mason Drake, Nova Chen, and Rex Thompson, they didn't break our system. They evolved it. 5 years later, the Academy's graduation ceremony looked very different. Species that had once studied in isolation now worked in integrated teams. Combat training incorporated dance movements from a dozen worlds. Quantum physics was taught through a combination of mathematical theory and physical expression. And in the corner of the graduation hall, 3 instructor nameplates caught the light of the binary suns. Professor Drake, Advanced Tactical Integration. Professor Chen, Quantum Movement Studies. Professor Thompson, Applied Gaming Theory. Below them, a small plaque read, "Everything is a game if you look at it right." The humans had done more than prove themselves. They'd shown the galaxy that the best way to honor tradition was to help it grow. Their games had become something more, a bridge between species, a new way of understanding the universe, and a reminder that sometimes the best way to learn is to play. And in his office, Professor Zalax made one final recording. Personal note, I once thought accepting those human cadets was the biggest mistake of my career. I was wrong. It was the moment everything became possible. End log. The end.